If you're going through a breakup or you feel like your relationship is coming to an end, this video is for you. I know that it's not easy transitioning from spending all this time with someone to then being alone, but if you want to build your self-worth, then this is a perfect opportunity to ask yourself why you settled, why you allowed a certain behavior from your partner, why you chose to ignore certain red flags. It's so important to do the inner work that comes from transitioning out of a relationship. And today's video is specifically about building your self-worth after a breakup. I'm going to share with you guys 4 very important lessons that I learned after my 3-year relationship. Y'all, this relationship, the way that it just tore my self-worth, any ounce of self-respect that I thought I had, that relationship proved to me that I didn't have it. After me and my ex broke up, there was so much inner work that I had to do. I want to give you guys a little bit of context on who I was at that particular time in my life. I had just started college and I started dating this guy, and everything was great in the beginning, typical. But over time, I just completely lost the standards that I had of myself because I didn't want to lose that person. Before me and this guy started dating, I thought I had self-respect. I always said that I would never tolerate cheating. I wouldn't be okay with talking to other people behind each other's backs. I wouldn't tolerate disrespect even in communication, like degrading language. And I tolerated all of that as our relationship progressed. All of the things I said I would never accept, I allowed that man to do. I swept it under the rug when I knew he was actively trying to cheat on me. I kind of just pretended like I didn't know, like it wasn't happening. He would compare me to other girls and I would beat myself up over it, trying to be like other people, even though there's only one me and I don't need to be like anyone else. I literally bent over backwards trying to get that man to love me and treat me the way that I knew I deserved. And that is a clear indicator I had no self-worth. Any sort of self-respect I had was lost. So let's jump into the 4 lessons that I learned after we broke up. Lesson number 1 is that your self-worth sets the standard for what you allow in relationships and for how you expect other people to treat you. If you don't feel good about yourself, if you don't have confidence, if you constantly seek validation from other people, you're likely the type of person that's going to tolerate things that you don't deserve. And that's why it's so important to build your self-worth, because when you love yourself, you're not going to allow other people to talk down on you. You're not going to allow other people to treat you in ways that you don't like to be treated. And I had to realize that because I lacked having self-worth, I allowed my ex to hurt me. I allowed behavior that made me feel horrible about myself. And the worst thing of all, I would justify his behavior. So let me give you guys some tea, okay? My ex was overweight for a significant portion of his life. And right before we got together is when he was at like his prime level of fitness. And so he would get a lot of attention from other women. And he would make me feel bad about it, which is crazy because the gaslighting was insane. But he would try to convince me that it was okay for him to flirt with other girls, that he wasn't doing anything behind my back, that he didn't get attention at all his entire life. And now that he finally had it, what was he supposed to do about it? And I would justify his behavior. Like I would feel bad when he would put it that way. And I can remember telling myself, like, well, as long as he's not cheating, I guess it's not that big of a deal. When now I'm like, oh, hell no. Okay. If you want to be with me, you're with me. If you want to entertain conversations with other people, go be single. I would never tolerate that because I've worked on building myself up. But in the past, old me was insecure. She didn't love herself. She didn't have self-worth, which is why old me allowed my ex to not meet my standards. I'm telling you, when you start to build your self-worth, it becomes so much easier to hold yourself accountable. If you say that you expect people to talk to you a certain way, if you say that you expect your partner to show up for you in certain ways, you hold yourself to that standard. And if they're not meeting that expectation, you don't even blink an eye. It becomes easy for you to walk away. The second important lesson I learned is that if you want to be in a healthy relationship, you have to work on your confidence. Before you go and enter your next relationship, please just take a moment and pause and just work on yourself. Stop entertaining other people. Stop giving other people your energy. Spend the next year of being single literally pouring into yourself and working on yourself. When me and my ex broke up, I knew. I was like, baby girl, your confidence is to the floor. I was like, girl, pick yourself up, because I allowed so many things. And I told myself I was never going to be that girl ever again. I would never be the girl who allowed the person I was with to talk to other girls behind my back. I would never be the girl who allowed my partner to cheat on me and accept and justify that behavior. I would never be the girl who was okay with their man comparing them to other girls. I would never be with a man who would gaslight me when I would tell them how I felt and victimize themselves. No, I knew what type of person that I wanted to be. And I promised myself it wouldn't be that old girl who was insecure. And so what that meant for me was literally giving myself time to not focus on anybody else, to not be dating anybody. And it was uncomfortable for a while because for a hot minute there, it felt good when I was with someone because then it meant I didn't have to be alone dealing with some of the stuff that comes up when you're alone. It wasn't easy, y'all, but it was necessary. And the thing that I find the most rewarding about building your confidence before jumping into a relationship is that you no longer will feel the need to be validated by somebody else. When you're a confident person, you know what you bring to the table, you know what you have to offer, and so it doesn't matter if other people see your value or your worth because you see it, which makes it so much easier to walk away from relationships when it's not serving you. It's really hard to build your confidence when you're constantly in relationships, when you're jumping from one person to the next person. So you can't avoid this part. If you want to build your self-worth, you have to be okay with being alone and you have to use your time wisely. I'm not saying sit here, be alone and distract yourself. I'm talking about be alone, do the work, go deep, and tackle those uncomfortable emotions and reap the benefits of becoming an empowered version of yourself. All right, y'all, get ready for lesson number 3 because this one, there's work with this one. I had to learn that if I wanted to heal, if I wanted to genuinely become a better version of myself, a more confident version of myself, the girl that I saw in my mind who had so much self-worth and self-love, I knew that that meant I had to face my shadows. Yeah. And it took me a minute. It's not like I got out of my 3-year relationship and I just jumped straight in. It took me a while to be able to do this, but once I did, that's where I found liberation because I was finally being honest with myself. And I had to ask myself, why did I allow him to compare me to other girls? What within me allowed myself to justify his behavior? Why do I feel like I needed him to be happy and complete? These weren't questions that I just bam, had the answers to. I went back to when I was 6 years old, 7 years old, how I felt in elementary school when I was the only girl who didn't have a boyfriend. Literally all of my friends up until 7th grade had boyfriends and I was the only one. And I remember feeling so bad. I remember feeling like, oh my God, am I ugly? Is it because I have darker skin than them? I just internalized that something was wrong with me and that's why boys didn't like me. So when I got into that 3-year relationship, which by the way was my first real relationship, it was hard for me to let that go because I felt like finally someone likes me, finally someone's giving me attention. And that's some deep stuff. That's some deep internal wounds that I had processed. So I just want to say with this lesson specifically, hold space for yourself and give yourself permission to go as far back as you need to. I'm talking, high school, middle school, childhood, because that's going to help you understand yourself. I understand why I accepted his behavior. And I had to have compassion for that part of me, for me to really forgive myself. And honestly, y'all, my journal was my best friend during this time. So if you have a journal, I highly recommend using it or use the notes in your phone. Have a place where you can express yourself, where you can actually pour out what you're feeling. Please, 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 ask you to not skip this part. If you're in that weird period where you're transitioning from being in a relationship to being single, there's going to be things that you're going to have to process. There's going to be things, whether you are aware of it or it's subconscious, that you need to release, especially if you feel like you lost your sense of self-worth. You're going to have to ask yourself those tough questions. You're going to have to rewire some of the limiting beliefs you have about relationships. You're going to have to forgive some of those past wounds that you internalized. And you're going to have to be uncomfortable. It's just part of the process. But I promise you are going to build your self-worth by doing this work, and you're going to be an even better, confident, independent version of yourself. The 4th lesson, the best thing that I've learned about my self-worth journey is that self-worth, it's not just a feeling, you guys. It's literally the relationship you have with yourself. It's an ongoing journey. Self-worth isn't just feeling confident. Self-worth is how you nourish your body. It's how you nourish your mind. It's how you take care of yourself. It's how you set boundaries. It's how you talk to yourself. It's the courage that you have to hold space for yourself to deal with difficult emotions. It's giving yourself permission to feel all of your feelings. It's all of these small things that add up that then build your overall sense of worth. And even though all of these things may seem small, when you compile all of them together, it's actually a really big deal. Even though things are really tough right now, you are literally in the best time to work on yourself. This is prime time. Being single, focusing on yourself, starting with like a small thing you can do every single day that makes you feel good about yourself. That's how you build your self-worth. And that wraps up today's video. The work isn't always easy, y'all, but it is totally worth it. I'm here for you. And I really hope and pray that you take advantage of this time you have in your life of being single to build that relationship with yourself. You will never go wrong with having a relationship with yourself and improving your self-worth. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Any engagement that you have with this channel really does help me out. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.